on, I realized that there needs to be more awareness about this problem for athletes. I got cut from a tournament because I was like going to school in like a boot. We lost. And it was home crowd, so like everyone was watching. Hi, welcome back to another video. Today is gonna be the start of a podcast that I am making, and I just wanted to talk about this topic more deeply as I feel like it's really important to society today. If you don't know me, I'm Riley, a high school student athlete that played 3 sports this year, including volleyball, touch rugby, and track and field. And I also go to an international school in Asia. And if you have seen my previous videos, they're usually about traveling, exercising, or just having fun. But as I was scrolling through TikTok and just thinking about how my athletic career has been going on, I realized that there needs to be more awareness about this problem for athletes, which is mental health. And through this podcast that I'm trying to start, I just want to talk about why athlete mental health matters to society today and just talk about some experiences that I've been through. And through those experiences that I'm trying to explain, I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone or harm them. I'm just speaking from my own experience and just trying to connect to other athletes and bring more awareness about this problem. So, why is athlete mental health needed? Why is this conversation needed? And as athletes, I feel like we always talk about training our bodies. And although that is important for us to make sure our performance is well, we also need to learn how to train our minds. And training our minds, I feel like, is one of the most important aspects that us athletes need to realize, that we just need to learn how to have a positive mindset more often. And I also feel like athlete mental health is often overlooked as we are constantly being judged on our performance. And I feel like some people underestimate how much we struggle actually inside our minds. And connecting to that I feel like athletes always feel the need to just stay strong and be confident on the outside, which is good, but I also feel like being vulnerable is also really important, and seeking help is really important so that you get the support and come back stronger. And if we continue to struggle with our mental health, this can lead to more injuries, burnout, and performance problems. So I feel like now's the time that we should deal with our mental health so that we can come back stronger. And if we think about the medicine side of mental health, it still needs to be treated just like a physical injury. So if you tore your ACL or sprained an ankle, it needs to be treated, right? So I feel like that's the same thing if you're going through any issues with your mental health. And if we look at the definition from the American Psychological Association, it says that mental health is a state of mind characterized by emotional well-being, good behavioral adjustment, relative freedom from anxiety and disabling symptoms, and a capacity to establish constructive relationships and cope with the ordinary demands and stresses of life. So through this definition, it's pretty clear that everyone has mental health and that mental health changes day to day. And it can affect your performance just like your physical health. But I feel like athletes are just a little bit different because there's many other factors that contribute to that mental health, including social media, injuries, school, if you're a student athlete, and like having coach and parent expectations, and if you're just trying to earn playing time. So I feel like there's just a little bit more factors that contribute to our mental health more. And if we look at the medicine side of mental health again, it shows that stress isn't just in your head. So if you're under pressure, your cortisol can increase, your adrenaline increases, and your heart rate increases, and your muscles start to tighten. And if you go under too much stress, this overall affects your sleep, recovery, immune function, focus, and mood. So with that, that's why I feel like mental health in sports is really important. So us athletes can learn how to reach out and just how to focus on having a positive mindset for us to grow stronger. So now I'm going to be talking about some of my experiences that I've been throughout my high school career so far. So the first experience happened this year when I got cut from a tournament for volleyball, which was season 1. And by the definition of getting cut, that just meant that I didn't make the roster. And for that tournament, it was a pre-tournament before the actual conference. So it's called Pre-I, which stands for Pre-IASIS. And IASIS is just a conference between Southeast Asian schools where you can just travel and play with your teammates against other teams. But so I didn't make the pre-tournament. And not making that pre-tournament honestly hit a lot for me because I know that I consider volleyball one of my main sports, and I really loved the game. But after I got cut, I realized that I had an ego to it, kind of, just because I made varsity my freshman year too. So I felt like I had to make the tournament because I made it last year. But that wasn't the case because a factor that was like one of the causes of me not making that tournament was that I had a bad game a week before the roster was decided, and that game was kind of like a game changer where I, as an outside hitter, would just hit in the net or hit outside of the lines, and I felt like my passes were just really off. So that's why getting cut from that roster hit a lot. So then when I went home, I was like pretty emotional, and I had a conversation with my parents, and they just told me to keep my head up, be confident, and remember why you're playing. And honestly, that pushed me even more, and it really changed my mindset to just come back stronger. Yeah, because having that support by my side, it was just really helpful to know that someone was always there even at my lowest. And thankfully, to my parents' advice, I did come back stronger. I had a really good game. I think my hitting average percent was 85, so that's really good. And I started to become the starter of the team more often, and I just gained more confidence overall. And thankfully, to my parents' advice, I made the actual conference and I was able to compete in Jakarta, so that's a plus. And I always feel like with volleyball, I feel like with all the sports in general, it's pretty mental. And usually in volleyball, you're kind of focusing on yourself rather than the team. And that's what I was doing at first. But then I realized that volleyball is actually really fun. So then I started playing with my teammates and not just for myself. And I think that was also a really big game changer that helped me improve. A similar experience in volleyball that I had my freshman year was that in IASIS, so the conference, I had a really bad game again, and it was pretty much the same as that game where that like changed the roster. So I would always hit in the net or outside of the lines, and my passes were just off. And as a freshman, I didn't want to let my team down because everyone was pretty experienced. So I just felt like I had to do my own job and try to score points for them. But unfortunately, after I hit one ball in the net, that kind of starts to get into my brain. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I'm having a lot of voice cracks today. That was that. And then after the game, I went to my mom, and I think I cried in her arms because I was just so disappointed in my performance, and I think she noticed that too. And so after I talked to my mom, she told me again, well, this was the first time, she told me to just be confident, and you're the only freshman on the team, so you should still be proud of yourself. And after that conversation, I don't know what's happening to my voice. After that conversation, the coaches talked to me because they also noticed how disappointed I was in my performance. And they were like, you are the only freshman that made the conference and for our school. And you should just be more confident in yourself and remember that you're an outside hitter and you made it really far just to get here. And noticing that like my coaches were also there for me to help me push a lot, because they're the ones that I saw almost like every day for like 2 to 3 months. So they could see my improvement. They could see when I was down. They could see when I was up or happy. So just having that support, I feel like, is really important, just to let all your feelings out. And so that was season 1 volleyball, talking about my freshman year and my sophomore year, which was this year. So season 2 was touch rugby. I also had like 2 incidents in this, and this was like my first time playing touch rugby in 2 years. And so the first incident was getting injured a week before IASIS, which was the conference again. And so the story behind that was just I got stepped on like the top of my foot by cleats. And if you've been stepped on by cleats, you know how hard it hurts. So I got stepped on by like another team. And then 1 week before IASIS, I got stepped on by a teammate. It wasn't her fault. We just ran into each other, and then that happened. So I got injured, and well, it hurt at first, and then I went to my trainer, and then she told me that I might have to like sit out this week just to see if my foot gets better. And she told me to get a scan. And I asked her, if the scan shows that it's broken, what should I do? And she said, don't worry about that. That's a problem for later. And hearing that from my trainer shows how supportive she was, and just how she's trying to keep the environment positive still, while thinking that I can play the next week for our conference. And thankfully I was, because it wasn't broken. So thankful for that. And it was also kind of sad though, because I was like going to school in like a boot, and then I couldn't go to practice. So I would just be on the sidelines sometimes watching them play. And while being injured and like seeing your teammates play, you just felt like I let the team down. And I feel like I kind of did because I wasn't being incorporated a lot. I wasn't like helping that much. And I just felt like at my own pace, I was like slowed down so much. And I felt like I had to catch up really quickly so that I could help the team. So that happened. And that was honestly quite a lot of pressure because I knew I wanted to play well in this conference to help our team win. And speaking of winning, in that conference, our team made finals, which was good, but then we lost. And it was home crowd, so like everyone was watching. But honestly, I feel like losing is one of the most like grateful experiences you can wish for or like you can ask for, because I know like everyone wants to win, but I feel like life just doesn't go that way, and there's going to be multiple journeys and pathways that you're going to take and multiple turns. And I feel like losing honestly just made me more grateful for the sport and for how much support I can get from everyone around me, including the audience, the coaches, my teammates, and like my parents. So I feel like losing always isn't always that bad, because there's more that you can get out of it, and there's more that you can learn and try to fix for next time. So that was my experience for season 2, touch rugby. Crazy. And now we're going to talk about track and field, which is season 3. And this happened this year also. A lot of stuff happened this year. Like, I don't know why. But yeah, a lot of stuff happened. So for track, I'm so sorry about my voice. I had a really bad race. Well, it wasn't that bad, but if you do track, you know that like every second, every meter, and just like, is that it? I think that's it. Every second and meter just count. And in this meet, it was like 2 weeks before IASIS. So I wanted a PB, which is personal best. I just wanted to have another PB, but that race said no. So in that race, in the 100 and 200, I was pretty slow. I was 1 second slower than like my average times, which is not that good, because in track, like even like a 0.2 change is a big difference. So being 1 second slower was pretty disappointing. And my coach, like, he doesn't need to use his words to express himself. So after both of those races, I just knew that I couldn't look at my coach because he would be so disappointed. And he came up to me after those races, and like I was kind of like really sad because I wanted a PB really badly. But he went up to me and then he said, everyone has an off day. And that also really helped me. So I feel like the outcome with like all of these experiences is just to have people that are really supportive of you, and have people that where you can just vent to and be emotional with, because I feel like as athletes, you always try to hold everything to yourself and you're just trying to hide stuff, when in reality I feel like we should seek the help when we need to, and I feel like that will just help us be more confident and just know that there's someone by your side. So, and through these experiences, I feel like the one takeaway is just that like the only way you can improve is by failing. And as you can see, I failed a lot this year, but that allowed me just to come back stronger. Like there's this like really cliche quote that says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I feel like that statement is really true and valid, because if you don't fail, if you don't go through those challenges, you're not going to get anywhere. And I feel like also by failing, you can feel pretty disappointed in yourself. But I feel like there's another aspect, or like another point of view that you need to look at it, is by like looking at it like holistically, like overall, like how am I doing? Because one bad day doesn't set you apart from like the other 200, 300 days that you have left to improve. So I feel like by failing, you'll just improve even more and come back stronger. And by realizing that, I realized that when you have a positive mindset, or when you're just becoming mentally healthy, that just doesn't mean that you're never stressed out or that you're never nervous. It means that you're learning how to recognize those feelings and understand them, and you now know when to reach out for support. And that's what I feel like is the main takeaway. And through this podcast, this is only the first episode, so I feel like my goal of creating this podcast isn't to tell you how to become the perfect athlete, because me, myself, I'm not perfect. I just said like a bajillion stuff I've been through and challenges and like setbacks. So I'm not perfect, and I know most athletes aren't perfect. So that isn't my goal, but my goal is to help explore how we can become healthier athletes and how we can become stronger and combat those setbacks. So, yeah, I feel like that was the main goal that I'm trying to get across. And next episode, I will be covering the pressure to perform. Although I covered it a little bit in this video today, I'll cover more examples and the medicine behind it and why it's important to know. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.